here, we're doing the pre-showing compensation agreement. That is the F258. This is what you'll use if you know that your seller is going to be paying compensation to the buyer's agent upfront and ahead of time. And they are not having the buyer's agent negotiate for their compensation. Pretty simple form. It's going to be dated. Obviously, the property address will be here. You're going to, for consideration, $10, other good value, blah, 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 blah. We're going down here. This agreement is contingent upon the offer to purchase that is made through the buyer's broker working with a representative, the buyer being delivered to the seller's broker within X days of the above reference date. I think 30 days. Let's say, for example, you have someone that looks at the property at first, and maybe it takes them 2 weeks to get financing done or something like that. But it might take them 45 days to finally get the buyers to possibly put an offer in. Then you want this to be null and void at that point, because at that point, you and your seller may have had a conversation and may have changed what the compensation is going to be. So I think typically a 30-day of above reference date is adequate enough. And hopefully Melba will agree with that. I believe that's what she said in class. Anyway, compensation being offered to a buyer's broker. We're going to put in here, obviously, that in this case, my sellers are putting 3% towards the buyer's brokerage or buyer's broker, and also known as the buyer's agent. And here's where it becomes important, and I'll show you why at the bottom section of this document. The above reference compensation shall be paid either A, by the seller in addition to the compensation seller is paying the seller's broker, B, seller's broker out of the compensation seller is paying to the seller's broker, and then the third one is seller and seller's broker as set forth in the other section above. So if you had some other something up here, that's where you'd put it. Typically, again, you're going to have the first one marked with 3, and then you're going to mark the second one, which is seller's broker out of the compensation seller is paying to the seller's broker. Seller's broker is the listing agent broker. So if they're paying 6% and 3 of it's going to the buyer's agent, that's what this all means. The rest of this is kind of gobbledygook. Any special steps? The buyer's broker or the buyer's agent's going to sign it. The listing agent's going to sign it. Here's where it's important to know which box you signed up above. If the seller is paying buyer's broker compensation, reference herein, seller hereby signs this agreement to confirm seller's agreement to pay the compensation to be made by seller. Seller does not need to sign this agreement if all compensation to be paid herein to buyer's broker is being paid by seller's broker. So in my example here, if we go back up, they're getting 3% and the seller's broker is paying out of the compensation, and they are going to be paying that directly. So it's fine. So in that case, then the seller doesn't actually need to sign here because it's coming from the seller's broker. The seller's broker is going to then pay the buyer's broker, and then the buyer's agent will be compensated through that. I hope that's helpful. Worst case is if this is too confusing for you to explain to your sellers, just have them sign here if you have to. Hope that helps.